What if a single bill could change the way Zimbabwe elects its leaders? What if it could reshape parliament, extend political terms, and redefine the relationship between citizens and the state? And what if one of Zimbabwe's most prominent constitutional lawyers is warning that this could become the biggest threat to democracy since the adoption of the 2013 constitution? That is exactly the warning being issued by former finance minister and constitutional lawyer Tendai Biti. Biti says Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3, commonly known as CAB3, is not just another amendment. He believes it represents a fundamental challenge to Zimbabwe's democratic framework. His warning has sent shockwaves through political circles and intensified one of the biggest constitutional battles in recent history. Tonight, we break down exactly what Biti is saying, why CAB3 has become so controversial, and why the outcome of this debate could shape Zimbabwe for generations. And before we continue, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications for daily Zimbabwe and Africa political news. Let's get into it. Zimbabwe is currently facing one of the most intense constitutional debates.
We have come and gone, including Gibson Sibanda, Morgan Tsvangirai, to name a few. As all of you know, on the 21st of March 2013, Zimbabweans voted in a referendum. 93% of those who participated in that referendum supported and approved a constitution. Those 93% were represented by around 3 million Zimbabweans. In that constitution, they chose a new consensus. They chose a new point of intersection between power, those who control it, and those that are subject and victims of the same. This constitution sought to deal with certain mischiefs, certain omissions and commissions that had arrested our country for a long time. One of those mischiefs and challenges was the failure of the state to renew itself through leadership, the failure of the state to reinvent itself, signified by a president that had been in power since 1980, who by that time, in 2013, could hardly be able to take himself to the bathroom, was permanently commandeered to the seat of power, the State House, as we call it, situated number 1 Chancellor Avenue, Borodale. So I said, how do we deal with this? And our answer was that we are going to create a document in respect of which there will be...
Since the adoption of the 2013 Constitution. At the center of that debate is Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3. The bill proposes major changes to Zimbabwe's governance system, including extending presidential and parliamentary terms from 5 years to 7 years, replacing direct presidential elections with election by parliament, changing voter registration structures, and restructuring certain constitutional commissions. Supporters say these reforms are necessary for stability, development, and institutional efficiency. But critics see something very different, and few critics have been as vocal as Tendai Biti. Speaking through the Constitution Defenders Forum, Biti has called for the complete withdrawal of CAB3. According to him, the bill undermines the principles contained in Zimbabwe's 2013 constitution, which was approved through a national referendum by millions of Zimbabweans. Biti argues that the constitution is more than a legal document. It is a social contract between citizens and the state. And in his view, Any attempt to significantly alter that contract without overwhelming public support poses serious risks to democracy. One of Biti's biggest concerns involves presidential elections. Under the current system, Zimbabweans directly vote for their president. CAB3 proposes replacing that system with election by a joint sitting of parliament. Supporters argue that parliamentary election of the president could reduce political tensions and align Zimbabwe with systems used in some other countries. However, Biti argues that removing direct presidential elections would reduce the power of ordinary citizens. For him, the right to directly elect a president is one of the most important democratic gains of the current constitution. Another major issue is the proposal to extend presidential and parliamentary terms from 5 years to 7 years. Supporters argue that development projects take time and that leaders need longer periods to implement policies effectively. They say constant election cycles distract governments from development, but critics disagree. Biti argues that elections are one of the most important mechanisms of accountability. The longer leaders stay in office without returning to the people for approval, the less direct accountability exists. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of Biti's criticism involves succession politics. Biti has alleged that CAB3 could weaken constitutional limits on political office and alter the balance of power established by the 2013 Constitution. He has argued that some provisions could benefit current political actors and influence future leadership arrangements. Supporters of the bill reject these accusations. They insist that the reforms are about governance and development rather than succession. Nevertheless, the succession question has become impossible to ignore. Biti has also questioned the legitimacy of the consultation process surrounding the bill. According to him, public participation has not been adequate. He argues that constitutional amendments of this magnitude require broad national consensus rather than a narrow parliamentary process. Other critics have raised similar concerns, arguing that the consultation process was too limited for changes with such far-reaching consequences. What makes this debate so significant is that it extends far beyond opposition politics. Concerns about CAB3 have also been expressed by civil society organizations, constitutional lawyers, retired military officers, and governance experts. Several groups argue that the bill raises important questions about constitutionalism, democratic legitimacy, and institutional independence. This means the controversy is not confined to a single political party. It has become a national conversation. Supporters of CAB3, however, continue to defend the bill vigorously. They argue that constitutions must evolve as nations develop. They believe Zimbabwe requires governance reforms that promote stability, policy continuity, and long-term planning. According to supporters, the proposed changes are constructive reforms designed to modernize the country's constitutional framework. From their perspective, critics are exaggerating the risks and ignoring the potential benefits. Political analysts say the CAB3 battle has become about much more than legal clauses. It is now a debate about competing visions for Zimbabwe's future. One vision prioritizes stability, continuity, and institutional reform. The other prioritizes direct democratic participation, constitutional safeguards, and accountability. Both sides claim they are defending democracy, but they disagree fundamentally about how democracy should function. For Tendai Biti, the stakes could not be higher. He believes CAB3 represents a defining test of Zimbabwe's constitutional order. Whether one agrees with him or not, his warnings have helped transform CAB3 into one of the most debated political issues in the country. And as Parliament continues deliberating the bill, The outcome could shape Zimbabwe's governance system for decades to come. The big question now is whether Parliament will embrace the proposed reforms or whether growing opposition will force changes to the bill. As lawmakers continue debating, Zimbabwe finds itself at a constitutional crossroads, and the decisions made today may determine the future balance between power, accountability, and democracy. Do you agree with Tendai Biti's concerns about KEB 3? Should Zimbabwe keep direct presidential elections and 5-year terms, or do you support the reforms being proposed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this report, please subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications for daily Zimbabwe and Africa political news updates. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.